everybody, it's Biff once again. Time for another Biff's Bit. Today we're going to touch upon how I mounted the fabric that I had printed for my special missions onto a wood surface, just like this board back here for my trench run scenario. I think in the last segment I touched upon how I mounted the paper maps that I had created onto poster boards. So today we're going to touch on the fabric. So again, I had this fabric printed online by a company called Fabric on Demand. They can print in color. As you can see, a little bit of the color with the Rebel deployment zone, and here's the green from the Imperial deployment zone. So you can get color on the fabric. When it comes to you, it's obviously on a kind of a big roll, and there's a bunch of extra that you'd want to trim off as you get ready to do the actual mounting. So, you know, the white trim, if you will, on the fabric has been cut off for this piece that got mounted. So one of the first things you want to do is once you get your fabric is go ahead and trim off the excess that you don't need so that it is of the appropriate size for the board that you're going to be mounting it to. Then what I would suggest you do is iron the fabric to get rid of any kind of creases or folds in the fabric. Try and get it as nice and flat as you possibly can. Once that's been accomplished, get your board ready. Obviously, you're going to want to have your board. But when it comes time to do the actual gluing, what you're going to do is you're going to flip your fabric over to the back side. I'm just going to kind of represent that here by flipping this piece of fabric over. So again, your printed imagery is on the other side of this fabric. And go off to the local craft store and get yourself some of this material that's called Wonder Under. It is a heat-activated adhesive that comes on a piece of paper, a real thin piece of paper. The glue is on one side of the paper. It's kind of the rougher, not as maybe shiny side of the paper. This stuff is pretty cheap. I got this 1 yard of adhesive, so it's 1 yard long by however wide this is, for like $3 at the Joann Fabric. And I'd recommend you go in there with one of their 50% off or 40% off coupons. So you're basically getting this stuff for about $1.50 a yard. So once you have your paper and so forth, what you'll do is with the glue side down, you will lay this stuff out on your fabric, just like so. And then you're going to take your good old trusty iron, and you're going to heat the iron up, and you're really just going to iron the glue onto the back side of your fabric. It's okay when you're putting the glue on the back side of the fabric to when you run like for a big piece of image. If you were to run another run of glue, it's okay to have a little bit of an overlap. So go ahead and do like one long strip of the adhesive, get all that nice and tacked down, lift the paper off, and then just kind of scoot over to the next area, lay the paper down, and then go ahead and use your iron to transfer the glue to the back side of your fabric. Once you've got the glue on the back side of the fabric, you're going to kind of repeat this process, but you're going to be doing this now with the fabric onto the wood that you're going to mount. So now is the time. Imagine the glue's all on this fabric. Now is the time when you would be placing this onto your board, much like how you see here. And what I really like about this process is it lets me really fine-tune where the fabric is going to be before I'm committed to it actually being glued to the wood. So you can get real nice, good adjustments. And once again, you're going to use your iron, and this time you're just going to kind of tack down a couple of spots to kind of make sure that the fabric is in the right spot, in the right position that you want. If something is messed up, you can heat the fabric up a little bit and then go ahead and lift it up once the glue is warm. It lets you reposition things just a little bit. So you'll go ahead and tack down the fabric in a lot of locations. and get everything the way you want it to be. Be mindful that you do not want to glue it by just kind of the typical ironing motion. If you do that, you're going to wind up pulling and pushing your fabric, and if there are like any lines on your imagery, like my Death Star surface, they might be a little bit wiggly as a result of all of that. So I recommend that you just do the tack down, just lightly tack everything down. Do that in a lot of locations. Once everything's pretty much tacked down, then you can go ahead and just kind of carefully go ahead and start applying the iron in the more normal fashion. A few other tips. I mean, that's basically how this stuff winds up getting mounted. A few other tips that I'll share with you regarding the mounting of the fabric onto a board. If your board design allows for it, I would recommend that you roll the fabric over to the back side of your board. That creates a really, really good bond on the edges. So here you see this is my trench plank. My trench run board's actually 3 pieces. So this is the center trench board. Down here's a little bit closer to where the exhaust port would be. But this piece of fabric, again, I've got it to where the fabric is rolling over the edges so I can tack down, again, using the adhesive to tack down the edge. The board that's in the background here with the green strip, I couldn't, because of the trim that's on the board, I could not wrap this around. So this is just straight on tacked down with the adhesive. It has not lifted up. In a few of the areas that did lift up, I guess I just probably didn't get to them with the iron when I initially did the tack down. But a couple of spots lifted up. It was really easy to fix. I just grabbed my iron again and just came back over whatever spot needed to be tacked down a little bit more with just some extra heat. You'll have to play with the heat setting on your iron. I would not recommend going to the highest setting right away because you don't want to damage the fabric. Just slowly start working up on the heat and eventually get to a point to where you get good adhesion with that setup. So that's pretty much about it. It's not that difficult. The supplies are not that expensive. You might actually wind up spending more on the board than you do on the actual adhesive that you wind up buying at the fabric store. So I think that's it for now. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to help us continue improving and expanding our channel's content.